Hey, welcome everybody back to Talking Trash Radio. It's me, the White Trash Hero. Today I am with the one and only Pittsburgh manager legend, BC Steele. How you doing, buddy?
I am tremendous in my exclusive estate in my office, ready to get into the ish, as the kids say. At least I think that's what the kids say.
Well, we're gonna get into ish or whatever they say nowadays. I like to call it BSing, but okay. So let's kick it off here. First and foremost, how you been?
Pretty good. Obviously, it's a little bit of a crazy time for everybody. I am one who always finds stuff to entertain myself. Totally against normal BC Steel, but been working out a lot more. In probably the best shape I've been in since I was 15. So I'm ready for my wrestling career to start. I'm going to be the new DDP at 36. I'm going to take on the world. No, no,
Okay.
no, no, no. Anybody that gets the idea of me wrestling needs to look elsewhere.
Well, let's start off with a little bit about your history before we get into how and why you got into wrestling. You started refereeing in '01,
Yep.
2001?
Yep. July
And
28, 2001.
Alrighty. Well, what got you into wrestling?
Well, my earliest memory of professional wrestling, and actually the earliest memory I have at all, is sitting on the couch with my father. And I remember seeing somebody in a shiny blue outfit. I don't know who it was. It could have been Blue Blazer. It could have been Coco Beware. It was the color blue. I remember that because blue's my favorite color. So I was sitting on the couch. I saw that and I kind of asked, like, hey, what's that? And he said, oh, that's that wrestling stuff. And he flipped on through and he flipped through again because there were only like 30 channels back in those days. I was 4. So this was 87. And I'm sure there's younger viewers now that are like, what? Only 30 some channels? Yeah, it was a thing. But I had kind of been fixed on that. Like every time he would flip through, I would just stare and watch and see what was going on. And from there, I just started watching on my own every single Saturday. WWF Superstars. They had a Sunday show. They had prime time. Everything that I could watch in the late '80s, early '90s. I found NWA or WCW World Class Championship or World Championship Wrestling, not World Class. I believe ESPN had AWA. In the 90s, I found ECW, and in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I found local independent wrestling as well. So kind of a progressive system of everything that I found. But it just always seemed to appeal to me. When I was younger, I wanted to be either an actor, which auditions that I went on to specifically failed miserably, and also a professional wrestler. Those were the two things that I wanted to do more than anything else in the world.
So you knew early on, so in your youth, that you wanted to get somehow involved in professional wrestling,
Yeah.
or on the entertainment side.
Yeah, I never had dreams of I'm going to be WWF champion. For me, it was, wow, I wonder what it's like to be in the ring, like to actually step through the ropes and to have that elevated look down on everybody. I never, obviously, everybody wants to main event WrestleMania. That's anybody's first day of training. That's there. I'm going to main event WrestleMania, but I was more, I just want to be involved. Like I've watched this when I started training at 17. I was like, I've watched this pretty much all my life. And this is something that I've always wanted to do. Like for me, that was just unbelievable. The fact that I was able to do that.
Well, with that being said, being so young, getting into the wrestling world, so to speak, who were some of your influences?
When I started, it would have been Norm Connors, also known as Notorious Norm to some. When Steel City Wrestling was around, it ran in my hometown, literally 10 minutes up the road. And I couldn't get front row tickets, and I had tried and tried, and somebody said, we got to sign up for the mailing list. Signed up for the mailing list, and Norm actually called me, ironically, when a Steel City Wrestling commercial was on TV during Raw. And he said, hey, is this Ben? And I went, yeah. Is this Norm? And he goes, how did you know? And I'm like, I know your voice. Like, I know what it is. So I had me and about anywhere from 2 to 4 of my buddies, we would all go to the shows, and I was able to get like front row seats, which was amazing to me back 15-year-old BC Steele, roughly 15, I think. And then he would ask, hey, you going to the show? And I'm like, no, I don't drive yet. And he said, well, I'm going, and I pass right by you. Do you want to come along? I'm like, oh my God, yes, I do. I'll be there. Where do you need me to be? I'll be there. I'll be there an hour early. So he started taking me to shows, and I would just pick his brain and I would ask questions. And admittedly, now when I look back, I'm like, wow, I was such a pain in the ass. Like, I don't know how Norm put up with that. I don't know how guys like, I mean, I used to pester you when I got online. If I had your screen name, I was going to message you, and
I remember.
I was going to ask you a million and one questions. And I'm lucky that I think people saw me as somebody that wasn't necessarily trying to crowbar my way in and trying to look cool, so to speak. I actually had questions I didn't have answers to, and I thought, well, I'll ask and see if I can get an answer. And some people were like, "Buzz off, kid, go away, f you," and other people were like, "Hey, this is the answer. This is what you want to do." Norm was a guy that told me, "Hey, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. Be respectful. Introduce yourself." I would set up posters with him, or hang up posters, set up chairs, the ring repeatedly. From doing that, I started going to shows, met Robert Parker Williams. Him and I would travel around. When I got into the business, I would say the biggest influence would probably be Quinn Magnum. I have always considered.
He's a dick.
I mean, he is, and he's ducking me. We've never had our fair one-on-one matchup. I didn't fare too well in our previous encounters, but he was kind of the one that would sometimes teach me by explaining, like, this is what you do, this is that, A to B, C to D. Other times it would be kind of more of a gray area where I would sit back and watch, and he would go, okay, this is what I want out of this. And then we would come back to it, and he'd be like, okay, this didn't work. And I would go, okay, well, this was supposed to go like this. This was supposed to go like this. It didn't. Where do we go from there? And my managing career, definitely Quinn, without a doubt. I mean, I watched everybody. I watched local guys like Drew Lazario, Damian Stockholm, Dylan Dean, Norm, obviously, is another one in there. Gentleman Joe Perry, a name that some people may not remember. You obviously know very well, Michael Vane.
Oh yeah.
Even the girls back then, Jasmine, Victoria. I watched everybody that I could when I started. I thought, if I'm going to do this, I need to look at people that have done this before I have, and I need to get tapes, and I need to get Jim Cornette and Bobby Heenan, etc. But direct hands-on contact, that's a weird way to word it, but one-on-one, I will say. Norm, definitely, before I got in the business. When I got in, Quinn. As a referee, Sean Patrick, kind of giving me the, hey, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. I wouldn't say an influence, and this is going to sound like a name drop, and we're like a few minutes in, and I'm already going to sound like a dick, but a guy that when I started reffing, CM Punk. He worked for Norm Connors. I believe IWC and Norm were the first ones to ever fly him and Colt Cabana in, I think.
I think you're right. I don't remember anybody else doing that.
Yeah, because I mean, they'd been in through Chicago in the Midwest, but it was driving distance. And after
Right.
9/11, it was very cheap. It was almost, in a lot of cases, it was cheaper to fly somebody in. But he was a guy that I was always taught, ask, especially when you're young, how was everything, anything, advice, questions. And he wouldn't give same with Colt Cabana too, because they wrestled each other a lot. They wouldn't give hey, everything was great, kid, good job, and then off they go. He would actually say, hey, you were out of position here. Or two things I remember specifically was, don't tuck in your shirt if it comes untucked because it looks like you're touching yourself. And you're too tall, slouch down because you shouldn't be taller than me. Those are two things I remember specifically he would hammer home. And I'm sure he's forgot me, 5 minutes after the last time I saw him, but always a thing of those two sticking out specifically.
So, talking about your training, you are a young kid. Well, before we do that, little funny story I remember of you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was you. Too many hits to the head. Did you skip your prom to come to a wrestling event?
Yes. My prom was June of 2001, May or June. And I had somebody that was like, hey, if you want to go. And I'm like, I don't know, it's expensive. And got the limo and the suit and all this stuff. And to be honest, I was a very quiet kid when I was younger, as hard as it may be to believe now, 20 years later. I didn't really have the desire to go, but I knew the allure of, you always remember your senior prom. Plus, it was on the Gateway Clipper, and I'm like, hey, this would be cool. This would be great. Well, it turned out that IWC was running, I believe it was still IWC. Yeah, it was IWC. It just started, actually, in McKees Rocks at the Emerald Room. And I want to say they switched the date to the date of my prom, but maybe it was set on that day. And I decided, yeah, I'm going. And Robert Parker Williams and I were friends at that point, and still are. I don't know why I made it sound like that. I did throw a chair at his face, but it happens. But I had said to him online, I heard a lot of those stories back in the day with me. When I messaged him and said, hey, I'm going to the show if you want to go. Like, we got to go. We're going to get there and set up the ring like we always did, and the chairs, and sit down and be quiet when the show's over. Do what we do. And he goes, well, wait, isn't it your prom? And I go, yeah, but like it's IWC, like it's this new thing. It's wrestling. I wouldn't give up anything for wrestling. So yeah, we actually passed the Gateway Clipper on the night of my prom with Robert Parker Williams in the passenger seat. And I point out and I go, hey, there's my prom. And literally, when we were going down, they were docking to get on the boat. And there were some shenanigans on that prom that made me very glad that I missed it for a wrestling show. So it all worked out. See, it's a sign from something.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you have any regrets about that? But it sounds like you don't.
No, I'm one that it's the Paul Heyman thing of, I heard him say this once, not to me, so this isn't another name drop, but about living with regret. I have none, because I don't know if I changed something, where would my life be now? I can't answer a question that I can't, reasonably play out. So I definitely don't have any regrets. And the Paul Heyman thing of, okay, you clapped, don't clap again. I won't clap again. Oh, you just did it again. You clapped. You're right. I can't control what happened then. I can only control what I'm in now and hopefully make it better for the future. So that's kind of how I view it. Definitely don't have any regrets. There's one or two things that at the time I probably should have made a different decision, but now looking forward or looking where I'm at now, yeah, I'm glad I didn't, because I wouldn't have everything I have and wouldn't be in the position in life that I am.
So you started training. You were trained by Devil Budokan, a really good guy who passed away all too young. Um, Me and Devil, I could go on and on about how much respect I have for Devil. I could go on and on about how so many stories in the locker room where guys looked at me, like especially the older guys, as somebody who they can kind of try to toughen up and try to be basically a dick to. Where Devil always treated me with respect. He sat down, he talked to me. He didn't treat me as a greenhorn. He treated me as an equal, and for that I'm always going to remember him. Now, with me rambling on, with that being said, tell me a little bit about the time that you spent with Devil. How did you get into the training, and any good training stories that you remember?
Actually, yeah. So I had met Devil Budokan previously. Obviously, like I said, anybody that I could talk to, I would definitely talk to and try and pick their brain. Robert Parker Williams started doing his website, Devil Budokan's website, and he started training in Joe Perry's school. I'd been setting up rings for Joe Perry for 6 months, maybe, if not more, between that and then even previous with Norm. So I kind of knew some of the guys. I knew what was going on. And RPW said to me, hey, you should come check out the training school one night. I was like, okay. So it was a CWF show. I cleared it with Joe, and he goes, yeah, definitely come down. And he explained the deal. You get $25 off every time you set up the ring off the cost of training. And I said, this is great. I'm going to have this. And he goes, you've been doing this for how long now? And I said, I don't know, 6 months. So we figured out how many shows and how many times have I set up and tore down the ring. And I was like, wow, like he definitely gifted me something. He came to my high school graduation party and made the joke of, hey, that's part of your graduation gift, right? I was like, okay, that's fair. So, but meeting with Devil at that school, he knew who I was. We talked, and I'd actually hung out at his house once with RPW, Potter, if you will. Just so everybody knows, obviously Potter, RPW, if interchangeable names, it's the same person. But so I'm sitting there and I actually brought my homework because it was my senior year of high school. And Devil looks at me and goes, hey, if you said you were 18, you could get in this ring and train today if it's something you want to do. I said, oh, I absolutely do. Like, there's no doubt in my mind I want to train. This is what I want to do. He goes, yeah, I know. If you told me you were 18, you could get in the ring. And I go, yeah, I know, but I'm only 17. Oh, darn. He goes,
Couldn't
no, no,
get
no,
through
no.
your head, huh?
No, he goes, no. If you said you were 18, and I went, are we missing something? And Potter goes, just say you're 18. I'm like, oh my God, I'm 18. Yeah, I'm 18. I'm good. Yeah, let's do this. So I got in the ring, and uh, there was a lot of more learning the ring, so to speak. Like, hey, this is the ropes. This is what you want to do. Focus in the center, and I'm not going to give away, everything, but the basics before I worried about touching the ropes or learning anything. So when that finally came down, I was able to run the ropes pretty good. I picked stuff up pretty good. I was able to bump pretty well. Maybe not so much today. Uh, but for some reason, every time I would try and face bump, my hands would come out. Just every single time. Some trainers might lose their mind. To be honest, he probably should have. But he was very, very, very calm in explaining to me, okay, here's why you don't want to do that. Because it's one, it's going to look bad. Two, if you jam and move, you could break a finger. Just here's what you do. So we're trying and trying and trying, and finally he goes, do you trust me? I go, absolutely. He goes, okay. So I put my arms behind my back, and he goes, now try it. And I put my arms out again. Man, couldn't get it. So I go to do it again. He goes, back up to me and then just run and jump. So I'm like, okay. So I run and jump, and he grabs my arms. So I can't put them in front of me, and just boom, I hit. And I'm like, okay, like I got that. And then again, boom, got it again. A third time, I had control of my arms, just flat out, as I almost knock over part of my office, flat out. So it was a thing of, and you mentioned earlier about how some guys try and toughen somebody up. In some instances, you might have a trainer that just either has to show off for everybody, or just doesn't have the patience to teach some basic thing, and loses his mind and beats the kid up, and the kid just ventures off and doesn't continue because maybe it's not what he was ready for. But Devil took a different approach, and I appreciated that. There are times where he would be direct and say, "Hey, this is what this needs to be. This, if you do this, you're going to get hurt. You need to do this and go full speed, and don't risk yourself or your opponent or whoever you're with that they could get hurt. So you need to, toughen up or smarten up or whatever the case may be." So that was, I would say Devil was the perfect trainer for the kind of person I am, because when people rant and rave and yell and try and, have a dick swinging contest, I tend to tune out. Like I can't have that. That's not how I'm wired. And Jimmy was different, and Jimmy could kind of tailor that. And the other nice thing was I was with my best friend, with RPW. So the two of us, at that point, had only been friends for a short time, but we connected so well, and we're going through this, and Jimmy could see that too. So I mean, RPW and I, when we started, would work out every show and work out tons of times, and just try and take, okay, well, Devil taught us this, and then he taught us this, and okay, now he taught us this. Let's try and put that together. And my first match I had was actually put together by three people, RPW, and well, I guess four, RPW and myself, but we didn't know shit from apple butter about what we were doing. The other one was Chris Hamrick, and the final one was Devil Budokan. And his whole point was, nobody's expecting Flair Steamboat, but you shouldn't really go out there and give them a pile of shit. So pardon my language, kids. So kind of having realistic expectations. And that's another thing I think that all trainers should do. I think trainers should smarten their students up to the business, and also how they should act, because there have been people that just are dickheads. And that's another thing where Devil's like, you've been around long enough to know specifics, but here's stuff just to make sure that you know what to do, what not to do, because what you do and how you act reflects back on me. So, yeah, those are, I mean, I have a million and one Devil Budokan stories that I could tell, and some of my favorite stories that I've heard that I wasn't there for. And I said on his benefit show, he's the kind of guy that when everybody was as down and miserable and sad as they were, that's the kind of guy you want around, because it will instantly snap you
Absolutely.
out. I mean,
He could see, like, if you were feeling down, like you said, he would come over, sit next to you, always ask how you're doing. I seen him do that to Kid Cupid. Like, Kid Cupid would have a down day in the locker room, people getting on him. He would come over and talk to him. Same thing with me. He was a really good dude.
yeah, and if you think about it too, I mean, you were around for this time, but for Devil Budokan, I always credit Devil Budokan, Super Hentai, Brandon K, Vince Caplack to an extent too, because he was a smaller guy. If
Mm-hmm.
you weren't over 260, 270 or over 6'2", 6'3", you weren't going to get much of anything. And you had Brandon Kay, a really, really fast guy. Vince Capblack constantly, backflips off the top and a faster pace. And you had Devil Budokan and Super Hentai, these guys that could go. And especially with Devil and Hentai, pulling out moves that most people in this area probably hadn't seen all that much. So just a really, really unique pioneer.
Do you know what all four of those guys that you mentioned had in common? Not only could they work their ass off, but they could use psychology and put the match together and make it entertaining and not be just a spot fest.
Absolutely. There was a match that I refed. It was CJ Sensation, Super Hentai, and Devil Budokan in a three-way. And they're putting it together, and Devil makes the comment. He goes, "So are we going to do a spot fest tonight?" And kind of looks around. He goes, "I mean, because that's kind of what we're known for, right?" And I was like, what is this? And just messing around, they went out and completely, it's the roller coaster description. They went slowly, and then they went back up, and it was really, really neat for him to watch three guys put that together. And that's another thing that I had an advantage of, is I got to learn how to put stuff together. I always, when I started, I was good at putting spots together, kind of formula A through Z of a match. My problem was I'm not the most athletic person. And anybody who's seen me wrestle or attempt to, I know this is a shock to everybody. Obviously, you've experienced it firsthand, unfortunately. But just if you tell me to fall left, I'll fall right. But I can tell you, okay, well, if you want to do this, let's put this here instead of here. Or let's put this part, let's move it just a little bit, and you stay down for just a hair more, that, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, and that, honestly, another guy that I should thank through that, because not only was he a guy that would put up with my rambling nonsense when I was 15, but trained Devil was Shirley Doe. So the Shirley Doe tree of people that he's trained and people that they have trained is unbelievable. I mean, you think of the who's who of Pittsburgh independent wrestling, and it runs through Shirley Doe and also through guys like Paul Atlas through down Brandon Kay. So, when you kind of trace back the roots, there's a lot of guys that are responsible for just about all of local independent wrestling.
You're right about that. Now, moving a little bit forward now, you got through wrestling school, you started refereeing. How did you get the opportunity to go from referee to manager? Why not? I know you and Robert Parker did a lot of one-on-one matches down in West Virginia and stuff like that. But you didn't really wrestle too many one-on-one matches up here near Pittsburgh. What made you decide to pump the brakes on your wrestling career and go towards the more of a managerial career?
Quinn loves to use managers. He utilizes managers very well. I would say that Quinn and Rise utilize me better than I would say just about anybody ever has. And there was a career trajectory that I had planned. Referee for a little bit, and then Quinn brought managing to me and said, "Look, Damian Stockholm is on his way out. I need some guy that I can, put with somebody, and okay, those two are set to go. I can give them stuff to do." And to kind of have that like parsley or the sizzle to the steak, so to speak. And Damian Stockholm was on his way out, and Quinn said, you're kind of a funny guy, obviously you've been around for a little bit, so would you want to do this? I was like, God, yes, absolutely. Went down, the first time I managed Glenn Spector in insert town here, West Virginia, for Mason-Dixon Wrestling. I was given a spinning Death Valley driver, and instead of landing like this, I landed like a lawn dart. And I landed right on the back of my neck.
Ooh.
It was probably 5 seconds, but it felt like a minute that I just couldn't move. And then all the pain just shot down through my legs, so I grabbed my legs. So I got dropped on my head and sold my legs. And I was like, that's not good. And then later in the night, had to go through a battle royal, which if you're young and you're in a battle royal, you're probably going to get the bejesus kicked out of you, which I did, including, name drop, the second match ever of Doc Gallows.
Oh.
His literal second match ever. Actually, third. RPW worked him as Mantis in his second match, so in a tag match. But be that as it may.
One of the Grip Brothers whooped on you, huh?
Yeah, pretty badly. I mean, in his defense, he was green. greener than I was at the time, and admittedly, as he put, didn't really know what he was doing. So it was just pretty much, I'm going to punch and kick and chop and slap and whatever I can. But after that, I had had neck problems for quite a while where it would be good and then it would be bad. And then there's been times where I've lost feeling in my hands, lost feeling down through my extremities. Now, knock on wood, neck and back are pretty good, the best they've been in almost forever. So thank God for that. But there was another time in 2005 where RPW was working out a lot at the building, and I'd come down a little bit, and I was doing some stuff, and he had brought up to me like, "Hey, have you ever really thought about giving this a go again?" And I'm like, "Okay, I've been a manager for like 2-3 years. I think I've got promos down, and being a manager and a referee, you kind of get to see everything, so it's a really big help." I thought, okay, we'll see how this goes. We were at it was a weapons battle royal for PWX. I bent over and I took a shot over the neck, and I just went numb and just collapsed. And I got thrown in and went to Cedar Point the next day, which is not really smart. But when I got to the locker room, the doctor had come up and he goes, "Does this hurt?" "Yes." "Does this hurt?" "Yes." "Can you do this?" "Yes." Squeeze my hand. He goes, "I think you suffered a stinger. Keep it good for a little bit and you should be fine." Then I proceeded to go to Cedar Point. I then proceeded to take a pile driver from the second rope from Chris Hamrick, proceeded to bump some more and just made things worse. And at that point, I'm like, probably not the route I want to go. My doctor told me that at one point I had the skeleton structure, my neck and back, of like a 75-year-old man, which not exactly news you want to hear when you're in your mid to late 20s, or at the time that I was. So I was like, you know what? Maybe we're not gonna wrestle. We'll be happy to just cut promos and yell and act a fool and get depantsed or whatever else that I end up doing.
Oh, you've been
So
depanced. I know that very well.
I have, and I've sat on your lap or been bent over your lap while I was depantsed.
That's a whole other story.
But needless to say, my wrestling career, I'm like, we're gonna put this on hold. I will say there is a benefit of not having to take all the bumps, but still getting to cut the promo and being able to do commentary, which is another thing I love to do. So yeah, definitely didn't quite go maybe as I originally planned, but happy about that because I can do
I was
this
going to
now.
ask you if the right time, if the right circumstance popped up, I was going to ask you, do you have one more in you that maybe you might want to do a tag match or maybe a one-on-one match?
I don't know if there's a clamoring for BC Steele to get back in the ring. I had
I'm
said
always willing to watch you get your ass kicked.
I did say that Stomp Out Cancer, the first one in the 8-man, was probably going to be it for me. I'm sure that if I wanted to, I have been told that I could probably, do a little bit more, but there is the risk of, after neck injuries, back injuries, and 7 or 8 concussions, not
Right.
all in wrestling, but do I want to go that route? I have not had my one-on-one with Marcus Mann. Quinn Magnum has been ducking me for a long, long time.
He has been.
I mean, we all know this, so I hope he doesn't really take that seriously. And
You'll have more neck issues, don't worry.
probably, and and Robert Parker Williams and I haven't had our farewell matchup. So as much as I want to say never, I've learned in wrestling to never say never, because every time I've said that will never ever happen, it happens. So yeah, maybe someday, but at the same time too, I don't want to try and have that one off when I'm like 55 and go, you know what, now's the time. Like, if it's going to happen, it's probably going to be in the next few years, and I think I will hopefully do enough to my body in that one match that I'm like, yeah, we're never going to do this again. There was a request from a fan at Rise that I do willingly get beaten up by Honey Badger and Ziggy Heim, which I have no doubt that they could do. I would not stand a chance. So I don't know if that's going to be my one-off, but as they have both beaten me up before, I'm sure that would be enjoyable for a lot of people. Not just in front of the curtain either, behind the curtain as well.
I might have to buy a ticket for that one.
There you go. 2-on-1 handicap match, and by the end, I'm probably going to be handicapped.
Me front row with my popcorn. I'm all for that. Now let's talk about little bit later in your career. I mean, you by then you have done a lot with refereeing, managing. You've met a lot of people. Name dropping, I think a few earlier, Doc Gallows, CM Punk. Let's talk about some of the locker room drama that you have seen. This would be kind of interesting. Any people, any times that you remember that maybe you just were like, screw this, or I'm going to give you the floor. Anybody you want to call out? Any stories you want to talk about locker room drama? Anything like that?
The only time I've ever said screw this and walked away, there's been one time in 2006, and it was probably me overreacting. I tend to, when I blow up, I blow up. It really takes a lot to really set me off, but when it happens, it's just kind of like scorching the earth. And we were taking down a ring at Jacob Wool Pavilion for PWX, and he didn't mean anything by it. I just overreacted. Nikita Alanov had stopped me and said, "The ring is that way, and you take this down." And I said, "Well, none of your trainees are here. You know, I'm tearing it down, but I'm literally going outside to get somebody." And I don't know why, but that just lost my mind. And I talked to everybody that was in the office at the time. It's a weird term to use, but that was in positions of power at that time. I said, "I'm done. I hate how this place runs. I don't want to be here. Goodbye." And I had said to Quinn at the time, who wasn't there, I said, "Just so you know, I'm gone. I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'm goodbye." And I lied because there was a second time that happened. Just telling that story. When I left, I was very much, I knew I was going to be back. I just wanted a break. When I left PWX in 2015, I did not want anything to do with the wrestling business at all. My firm belief is if you're a promoter, your sole, or if you're, in charge of, if it's your money on the line, your sole goal should be, how do we get the people in the building? Your secondary goal should be, how do we get people to stay? And that's when you can interact with, your talent and, who do people want to see, who do people not want to see, and go down that route. But I felt at the time with PWX, the focus was not how do we get people in this building, how do we sell it out? And we were doing pretty good. I mean, there were times in 2015 that we were close to, if not outdrawing IWC. It didn't happen every time. It certainly did not happen every show, but there were big events, specifically Gory versus Pollock. It pops into my head, to where the draw was just about at or not more than IWC. So things were going really well, but there's always more that we can do. Hey, here's the mailing information. If you have all these addresses, mail these, postcards I've been hearing about for 14 years. Can't do that. Okay, well, here's the TV commercial information. We have a guy that edits in-house. Can we do that? No, we can't do that. And I'm like, okay, well, what are we focusing on? Well, we're going to do this that's overseas. We're going to do this that's that. And there was a lot of ancillary stuff that had nothing to do, in my mind, with the product, nothing to do with what should be focused on. Because I don't care about, if I work for Rise, I don't care what a company that I don't work for does. I mean, they can focus on their stuff. I hope they draw 5,000 people. If the company that I work for is drawing and making money and everybody's doing well, that's all I care about, because I can't control other people. I said earlier, I can't look back and change the past. I can't control what somebody else is doing. I don't have that power. Sometimes I can.
If the promotion you're working for is doing well and making money, that means you'll be making more money.
Exactly. That was my mind. It was like, look, I'm not saying anything that's crazy. And I was given, well, you're young. And I'm like, no, I've been around 14 years. I've worked with enough people that know what the hell they're doing to know what I'm doing, even if I'm just reciting their stuff that they've said to me. So don't feed me that line. Well, it used to be, I know guys that were around then, so I know the truth. It was just stuff where I was just being told stuff that I knew was just false. And some guys like, well, you know what? That's the better game, and that's just this and that. But I just didn't have patience for it. So in not my best fashion, but completely went off. There was a Facebook group, and I was like, that's it. I'm done. Thank you very much. The Jim Cornette line, thank you, fuck you, bye. And I don't know if I use those words, but I was like, this is just ridiculous. We're spinning our wheels. The company isn't moving forward. And if we're not moving forward, I don't want to be a part of it. And again, I went Quinn was involved at that time, and I said to Quinn, look, I'm done. I will gladly finish out whatever you want me to finish out, out of respect for him, obviously. I said, I will finish out whatever you want me to finish out, whatever you need me to finish out. He said, if you need to go, believe me, I saw everything that happened. I completely understand it. I said, okay, in that case, I'm done. I'm gone. Goodbye. Thank you for everything. I'll never be able to repay it, but I'm gone. And I had messaged and texted guys that I was involved with and people that I was working with. And I said, look, I'm sorry to do this to you. Yes, it's messed up, but I went to the boss and he said I can leave and that's fine. If he would have wanted me to stay to finish out, obviously I would have, but he knew. I mean, he wasn't shocked by it. And it was weird because I was a guy that I think, for all intents and purposes, was one of the most loyal people to PWX at that time. Um, I know there's been stuff said about Potter and I about being trolls and moles and stuff, which is, again, false, blatantly ridiculous, because with the texts to prove it, my focus should always be, what are you doing to make your company better? So I was ready to leave. I said, I'm done. And then a few weeks later, I got texts, hey, you should come talk to Justin Plummer at IWC. Sometimes they might need a backup commentator. Like, okay, cool. But I don't want to do I'm done with wrestling. I've been at that point 14 years. I'm good. I'm happy. We'll see. Hey, there's a show down the road from you. You should come check it out and talk to him. And I'm like, okay. So I get to the show, and I had Potter put me over. Jake Clemens, the referee, had put me over. CJ Sensation had put me over. Jesse the Mark, some people know, had put me over, to the point that when I had actually talked to Plummer, he had said flat out, a lot of people speak very highly of you. They say you're loyal. They say you're good at what you do. And, we have LaRusso coming in, and maybe there's a spot here. And I thought to myself, I've managed LaRusso before, but I don't know. And him and I talked about it, and I would say 50-50 to do it or not, just because we had done it before. I think he was more 70, not 30 to do it, just because it was new for him. And sometimes you just want to break out on your own, which I understood. And then we thought about it. It's like, it's a fresh coat of paint. It's new matches. It's a new scenario. It's people that, quite frankly, may not have known who we were. So it was kind of also nice to have that crutch, that familiar old hat, so to speak, that you can go in there with. So that ended up happening, and I thought, okay, I'll do this for a little bit. And then Rise ended up happening, and as he's done before, Marcus Mann motivated me to continue on, and I got to work with RPW again, which, when you're working with your best friend, the chemistry I have with him doesn't match anybody, so it was easy. Like, okay, I like doing this again. And then Premier Championship Wrestling in Ohio came about, and Joe Dombrowski and I do commentary there, and I was like, okay, I was ready to leave, and I'm back in the wrestling business. And toot my own horn, I think it was some of the best stuff that I've done the last 5 years when I was going to leave in 2015. So granted, I went a little bit deviated off of wrestling drama, but just kind of shows that even with drama and some BS, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, it sounds like you had a long road, but you're in a happy place.
Absolutely. I've never really been unhappy. I've always told people, because look, wrestlers and wrestling people complain like nobody else. And I will say it's great now because there's a lot more positivity in this area that there's ever been. The talent is the best it has ever been, period. Men and women. And managing and refereeing, or refereeing definitely, because when I wore the stripes, I looked like a potato in a referee outfit. And now you have referees that are in the shape that they need to be in, and just across the board. And for the most part, I would say majority of everybody's doing well. Not right now because of the pandemic, but in general.
Well, that takes me to my next question. There's a lot of Pittsburgh wrestling going on with IWC, PWX, Fight Underground, just to name a few. But it seems like you have isolated yourself to Rise and Premier.
In Cleveland, yeah.
How come you haven't tried to reach back out to the group that you worked with in the past? Maybe try to get back out there with the boom kind of coming back to Pittsburgh. Don't you think that you would have an impact with any other of these promotions?
I do. Some might say it's egotistical, but I've always said, if you look at what I've done, look at what I can do, and look at what I offer, and you don't see the value in me, you're either in denial you're an idiot that doesn't understand what talent and what somebody who's valuable is, or there's some ulterior motive that I just really couldn't put together. Can I be overbearing? Absolutely. Can I be obnoxious? Definitely, in front and behind the curtain. Can I be too much? Yes. But when it comes down to it, I've got knowledge that can be used and utilized, and I'm glad that definitely that Rise sees that and Premiere sees that. I haven't really thought much about reaching out. I did finalize some stuff in PWX back earlier this year, just because I wanted a better ending to it. I felt that, or maybe it was end of 2019, too many shots to the head. But I felt that I just wanted a better ending, just with leaving without a trace. So was very happy to go in and do that. I did one shot for RWA. I think my personality fits there, but I haven't really reached out other than talking to Feel Bad now and then. I really don't have a desire to work for the new PWX. I am interested to see what happens with Fight Underground, because I think it's a different concept, and I think the man in charge having no strings attached is something that could be very good for local wrestling, something that's needed as well. IWC, I've done commentary there twice. I found out 2 years ago, 2 days before the show I wasn't needed. I was given an explanation as to how this was all going to come about. I'd said to my fiance at the time, this is not going to happen, and I have a feeling that I just got hosed. I don't know who did it. It could be one of a few people, one of two specifically. But at the end
You
of the
want to
day,
name any names on that, or you going
well,
to keep
I
them?
mean, no, it's got to be one of two people. Chris LaRusso went on to work with Justin LaBar under his tutelage and became a tag team champion, and it's Justin Plummer's promotion. So those would be the two. It could just be a thing of miscommunication that does happen, but those were the two people that, one, it's his promotion, and two, LaRusso is the one that said, hey, you're not needed. We're going to hold off for now. So, which is fine. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Justin Plummer's company. So
Right.
if he wants me there or not there, that's fine. I'm not going to, and I feel even weird saying this, but I don't want to go on social media and tag him in a post and say, he doesn't use me and my butt hurts now and I'm going to whine and complain and, oh, screw them, I hate them. But no, like, for 2 years, I got to work with guys like Adam Cole. I got to, it was kind of a cool thing for me, but I got to do a thing with Super Indie to manage LaRusso in Super Indie, which I ref the first one. So that was kind of a cool thing. I got to reconnect with some people that I hadn't. I got to work with young talent, which I absolutely love, because one, it keeps me young, and two, it kind of lets me see that progression of how people kind of develop. I got to do a lot of cool stuff. I wish there would have been more finality to it, other than, he just disappeared off to his home planet, which is a Simpsons Poochie reference, a real deep one if anybody gets that. But I definitely wish there would have been, because I felt with Bulk Nasty, myself, and Chris LaRusso, there was a lot of money left on the table. One of the greatest things that Quinn ever taught me, and it was during shall we say, a heated conversation, uh, that's why I always point that the Big Brother thing is, because you can make your passionate point to somebody and you can piss that person off, and at the end of the day, they're like, okay, I get where he's coming from. It's all good. Let's move on to the next thing. Quinn said to me flat out one day, he goes, for lack of a better way to put this, Ben, it's not your money. And I went, holy shit, he's right. Like, I'm getting so worked up, and as much as I had a feeling about what I thought what should happen going forward, he was right. It's not my money. It's not my risk. It's not my butt on the line. So I am not the final say. And sometimes that's hard to understand. And that's why I wonder if being a matchmaker, writer, whatever you want to call it, I don't know how well I would do in that role. I think I'm an idea guy, but I think having complete control with having to, not complete, but having top control with needing to deal with other people might be difficult for me, just knowing my personality. But that's something that he said. So if Plummer or Feel Bad, or even if Brandon Kay or Quinn or whoever, if they decide, we don't want to use him, that's fine. That's you can't book everybody, and that's one thing I definitely understand as a promoter. Look, every single promoter in this area probably has, I would say, got 20 unread messages from guys that want to come in, 20 messages that he hasn't gotten back to, text messages that he hasn't gotten back to, stuff with his talent that is on the show. stuff with buildings, stuff with doctors, stuff with the state. There's so many different variables that are flying at you as a promoter or flying at somebody as a promoter. I really can't get too upset because they can't get a hold of the manager or they don't want to use the manager as an afterthought. I am very, very lucky and glad that I work for Rise because I think Rise is a good mix of talent from Ohio, and they bring in guys from the Carolinas, and hey, let's pick this guy from Indiana, and hey, let's use this local talent that is really, really good, and let's give them a different opportunity that they may not get somewhere else. I love that. I love working for Premier because, one, I get to do commentary with Joe Dombrowski, who for my money is the premier guy, no pun intended, in commentary today. I always say when somebody says, wow, you guys are really good, I say, yeah, that's mostly Joe, because Joe can work with anybody. And Joe and I, probably my third favorite team of Joe Dombrowski. It's Joe Dombrowski and Aaron McGuire, Joe Dombrowski and Jay Worthington Farnsworth, and a close third, Joe Dombrowski and BC Steele. So I'm glad I get to do that. I don't really have the desire to fill up every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with a show like I used to. I've gone back through my results and I look and I'm like, wow, this page of results that I did took 2 weekends. Okay. Oh, geez, this page of results took a month. Oh man, this page took 2 months. Like, so you can see the slower progression of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I'm really laid back, and it used to drive me crazy and I think this is the same for anybody in wrestling. If you have an ego and you know your talent, know your worth, it would drive me crazy. Well, why are they using so-and-so? Because I'm right here. Like, I am right here. Or why are they using that person? Because I'm better than them. Well, it's not my money. It's not my vision. For what they saw, they might have thought I didn't fit that. And maybe I didn't, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. And when it comes down to it, wrestling is fun. So I can't really get too up or have ill feelings towards anybody in professional wrestling because this is supposed to be fun. And if it stopped being fun and I started driving myself crazy, I should probably find the door and not turn back.
Very, very, very good. Words could not be truer. I agree with you 100% on that one. Yes. I still think you're cocky and ego, but you know.
Well, somebody said to me once that they said if you can cut a good promo, you're either really, really talented or really, really insane. And they said that if you get used well, you're either, or if you can spout your virtues, you're either really, really cocky and egotistical, or you have a really, really good insight as to who you are as a person. And I don't know where I fall on all of those, probably bounce around somewhere in between all of them. But yeah, I'll take that as a compliment.
I'll even go one step further, and I am going to give you a compliment, and it ain't going to be on video, so you can hold on to it. You do have a very good brain for the business. You have good psychology. You have a good head on your shoulders. I think you would be an asset, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera, maybe not booking, but definitely helping the younger guy with their promo, maybe character development. That's something that I think would be right up your alley. With that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next portion. You being a young guy and you being in the business so long, I'm sure that you had a few botches or boo-boos or mistakes that you have made. I can think of one in my mind very, very well, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but I'm going to let you have the floor on that one.
I will address that one first because that is, I would say, my second worst. And I assume we mean the 3D where I pushed out instead of up. So I just went bonk.
That was literally, yes.
I literally looked up and I can see you guys looking at me. I'm like, oh man, this went horrible. Oh, I should probably just lay here for a while.
That one's definitely one of them. But the one that I was thinking about was you making a fast count too soon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one too. That was me knowing that there was a fast count coming and going, oh, there it is. And again, fast counting and everybody going, like what? And I was like, oh. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh God. But also I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm a heel, so I'm saved. If babyface, and you botch, that's not good for anybody. That's not good.
For those who are wondering what we're talking about, me and Tony Rivera were in a promotion for a few shows called Liberty Championship Wrestling. Um, BC Steele was one of my referees. BC Steele was a heel referee we were trying to get over. He was refereeing a match between Real Smooth and me and Big. He was supposed to do what, two or three different 2 counts, and then
Yeah.
finally you were going to do a fast count. I was going to kick out, but you were still going to count me out. But BC decided to jump the gun, and the very first pinfall was 1, 2, 3, and I looked up. I'm like, this ain't right. And I looked at him, and the look on BC's face after he realized what happened, I couldn't get mad.
It
I'm
was
like, I'm like, that poor kid. You just went pale white.
in my defense, you did kick out at 3. I mean, so I mean we got what we were going for. The look you gave me, I had gotten years previous when I didn't fast count Boomer Payne, but I did count 3, and it was a rib on him, the king of all ribbers, and I was told just count 3. And when I counted, he looked up like, "You're gonna die," and I'm like, and somebody goes, "Got you," and I was like, "Oh, thank God, he knows now. I can just leave." But thankfully, I was wearing dark pants on those 2 occasions, because if not, might have been kind of rough. My my worst botch, honestly, probably would have been one of 2: either sandbagging Mad Mike when he tried to give me a suplex,
Yeah,
because
he was hot about that one.
he was going to stall, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll
Yeah,
just jump a little bit then. And I have a sand ass. All the weight is in my ass, so it's very hard to get me up sometimes, except for Quinn, because I didn't have a choice. Um, but there's a couple other guys when I went up, I was going whether I wanted to or not. But so I just jumped a little bit, and we went up, and I went down, and he goes, "Jump now," and I was like, "Huh?" And he just whoosh, snapped suplex and stomped on my back, to which I had a footprint. And we got to the back, and he goes, "You need to get away from me." I'm like, "I think I'm going to get away from him." And to his credit, who a guy who can get mad, I apologize, and he goes, "Here's why. Here's what I wanted." I'm like, "Okay." "Here's what you did." I'm like, "Eh." And I think I was only a year into the business at that point. My other worst botch I've ever had was a match against, it was Spiral, the late great Spiral, and Jason Cage. And I hopped up to the apron, and actually, before I go into other botches, I have botched a couple times in Jack Pollock matches, which is weird because I seem to a certain point, I'm like, well, I went years without botching anything. And then Jack Pollock matches, and I botched 2 in a row, and sorry, Jack. But so the spot with Spyro and Jason Cage, supposed to have him for a superplex, and I'm supposed to get pushed. My thinking has always been I would much rather be pushed or hit harder, even though I hate it. I don't like getting hit hard, but if somebody's going to, take a swing or do something, don't be afraid to make contact so I can know how to react. The thing that I hate most is when I get hit and it's just a leaf, and I'm like, okay, now what do I do? So uh, I'm waiting to get pushed, waiting to get pushed, waiting to get pushed, and apparently I did, and then I get told, jump down. So I jumped down. And when I landed, because I am not athletic, my foot slipped and I tripped. And I decided, I'll just lay here and sell. I'm fine. And apparently it looked like I just figured I'd had enough of life and just jumped. And I got to the back, and it was funny because Stacy Hunter was the first one to meet me at the curtain, and she goes, that looked like shit, right? I go, yeah. Are Paul and Quinn going to kill me? They go, nope, they have bigger fish to fry. So I went up to Paul. I said, I messed up. He goes, not the worst. Get out of here. I'm like, no problem, Mr. Atlas, sir. I'm going to go to the other end of the building, and I will see you later. And other people that night got chewed out, and thankfully my botch was minor in comparison.
Well, that does sound like Paul Atlas. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
Now, what about some memorable moments in the ring, like funny moments? Do you remember anything funny happening that was either improvised or off the script?
Yeah, there's been a lot. My favorite is really, really, really messed up because I got Quinn to crack. Quinn Magnum gets a very angry look on his face, and I'd been kind of messing with him before the promo, so I knew he was probably maybe a little bit angry with me. And, not angry, but just like this kid.
Annoyed.
Yeah, annoyed, definitely. And we're doing the promo, and I'm basically talking about how, Shane Taylor was going to destroy his kids and him and his family, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like taking every barb I can think of. And some idiot was yelling stuff to try and get himself over. And normally I can ignore it. And my thing is, if you want to come at me, and I've done this for so long, you better be ready, because I'm probably going to give it back. I'm probably going to outsmart you, and then you're probably going to look like a piece of garbage. So he had on a Steve McNair jersey. And for those that don't know, Steve McNair had passed away in 2007, I believe, and this was 2012. So I'm cutting my promo, and guy says something, and I turn to him, and I said, "Look here, you freaking idiot." Didn't use those words. I said, "Nice Steve McNair jersey, idiot. How many touchdowns did he score last year?" And in my head, I'm like, oh, that was probably not good, because sometimes my brain and mouth go before my brain. My brain sends it to my mouth, and then my brain goes, should we have? Oh, it's already out. So I turn around, and Quinn is just covering his face, just like, oh, and I turn around, and he goes, "You're such an asshole. I want to punch you in the face." I'm like, oh, God, this is great. I'm very good at messing with referees as well, especially during battle royals. If you are a referee in a battle royal and you have not been groped or humped by me, it's coming. Don't worry. I'm sure I'm going to be on some kind of list now. But and I like to do that if somebody's in the ring. I'll just say something completely ridiculous. Case in point, Tom Dunn. The first time I had ever met him, I'd shook his hand before, but really didn't talk to him. And he's in the ring, and I said, there was a girl in the front row who was just had fingernails. Fingernails, yes. Her fingernails were amazing. So I said to Tom Dunn, I point over my shoulder, and I said, that girl in the front row, she's going to get some of BC Steele. Over my left shoulder was the girl that I was talking about. Over my right shoulder was a group of about, I'd say 5 or 6 girls that couldn't have been older than 12.
Oh my God.
So Tom Dunn looks over the shoulder that I didn't point and just stares at me like I said I joined ISIS or something, or Al Qaeda. I just an utterly disgusted look. So I'm like, well, that's a weird look. And I look over my shoulder, and I look at him. I go, no, not them, not them. The girl with the giant, her.
No.
Yeah, and he was just like, okay. Like his brain was just like, this guy's really, really messed up. So that was a funny moment. A great rib that's been told before. Robert Parker Williams. I had played a rib. It wasn't a rib. I'd put a giant Dad's root beer bottle, a 2-liter, and the ends of those bottles are about that wide, like very wide. And I stuffed it into the couch, and he sat on it. And I mean, he sat on it. This thing disappeared, and he's never been the same since. But so to get back at me, I was reffing for IWC in 2007 for IWC's 100th and 101st show. And the lights go out, they come back on, and it's he was with Muhammad Hassan Davari. Almost forgot his name. So Potter and I are on the outside, like, oh my God. And Potter goes, boom, and hits me right in the nuts, hard. And he goes, and that's called a receipt. And I couldn't sell it, so I just cowered over like, oh God, oh no, let's get some order. So those are some funny times. There have been other times just like obviously goofy stuff. My favorite is probably Devil Budokan wrestling Potter as Mantis, and he locks up with him. He goes, okay, I'm going to shoot you off, hip toss, arm drag, and I'm going to bang your mom. Go. And then you just see him, and you see him running, and I can see his shoulders shaking. I'm like, what's going on? And said after the show that he goes, yeah, here's the spot he called. I'm like, I don't know where you go from there, but when I think about that stuff, it makes me very happy, because a lot of times wrestling is serious, and I know on social media I come across as bitter and whiny and angry and just a dick sometimes, and that's part of who I am. I mean, I don't hide from that. One of the greatest things I think about myself is I'm not fake. I'm pretty much real. What you see is oftentimes what you get. If you're behind the curtain, you might get a little bit different side of me, but there's very few and far between of me being different, and the only time that really happens if I'm at home. So, yeah, when I think about stuff like that, it just gives me a good feeling of just goofy times, funny times, cool stories. And that's the one thing when I look back, I'm like, I've been doing this almost 20 years. And if I would have told 15-year-old me, hey, when you're, 36, 37, you're going to have so many memories and so much good stuff. And every good thing in your life right now is directly associated to your life in professional wrestling. Like that 15-year-old kid would have been ecstatic. And hey, you're going to meet this guy. You're going to work with this guy. This guy that you watched, you're going to get to, go side by side with. And this guy is going to, beat you up and stuff like that. Like it would have been insane. I wouldn't have been even able to fathom getting in the ring, let alone anything else that's happened.
Well, that's the beauty of this industry. You never know what you're going to get, but you do get the memories. One memory I remember of you and I think Potter was involved, LCW, when the ring broke. And we had to go get the bolt because the ring didn't break. We just didn't have all the pieces from the guy who we rented the ring from, so we had to go buy a bolt. And you guys stalled for time. The only way that you guys could do. You came out and you all were dancing around to Dancing Queen. Now, do you remember that?
I do, because there was a time at IWC once where somebody just said to LaRusso and I, they go, "Hey, you guys need to go out and kill time." And I went, "Huh, what?" "No, you're dressed, go out and kill time." And I'm thinking to myself, there's a couple times I've had to just stall for time. I'm like, okay, one time I cut a promo and, oh, I could just dance. I'm like, no, there's no music. But I do remember that because Sean Patrick was a guy that whenever we would have to stall for time at PWX, he would tell Potter and I, "Hey, run the ropes. Just keep running the ropes just to make sure they're good." We'd run the ropes and then we'd get done and I'm like, "How was that? Was that good?" And Sean's like, "Yeah, you guys could have stopped a long time ago." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh God." So
Well,
yeah,
that
that
was
was
a
a good.
fond memory that I remembered of you.
Would you
And
like
Potter.
to would you like to have me reenact it right now? I could dance if you need.
100% no, we're okay with that.
I mean, I could strip. I'm in my office. There's nobody around.
Family show, family show. With that being said, do you have any closing comments, anything that you would like to address to your legions of tens of fans? Um,
Um, I guess for anybody that recognizes my talent, congratulations because you have a set of eyes. If you don't recognize my talent, I would suggest you educate yourself because knowledge is power, and I think that there are a lot of people that don't have that. That's a whole story of a different color, not just wrestling in general. To everybody who's ever used me on their show, thank you. To anybody who's ever tried to use me in life, go to hell. To the girl who rejected my date to homecoming, ha ha ha, because your life really went downhill. Doubt she'll see this, but God, I hope she does. Uh,
you can
she's a
tag her in
real,
it.
she's a she's a real mess now. Um, no, I tell people all the time the saying of support indie wrestling. Don't just support indie wrestling because it's not indie wrestling. Support good indie wrestling. If you're a fan or even a wrestler, don't be insulted. Don't have your intelligence insulted. Don't have your ability insulted. And if you like something that other people don't like, or if they like stuff that you don't, just don't tweet about it. Don't complain about it because all you're doing is putting a spotlight on that. I don't like pistachio ice cream, but if White Trash Hero likes pistachio ice cream, you can have your pistachio ice cream. If I
I
have
mean,
my
I'm fat. I
chocolate
like anything.
Well, if I have my chocolate and vanilla ice cream, I'm happy. So I'm not going to try and tell somebody they shouldn't have their pistachio ice cream. Just don't put it near me. I won't talk about it. Enjoy. Do whatever you want to do. It doesn't affect me at all.
Are you
And on top
hungry?
of that,
Oh,
I
you're
kind of
talking.
am.
Okay.
I did have Chipotle earlier today, so I could go for some dessert.
Is
And on
that
top of
why I had to
that,
wait for you to come on because you were pooping?
well, yeah, there was a very meeting. It involved myself, some ice cubes, a pitching wedge, and this girl I know.
Oh,
But that's a
wow.
whole. If anybody gets that movie reference, I'm very impressed, and I probably messed up the reference anyway. But no, just it's weird to tell people thank you because a majority of what I have is from one, people that know how I feel, and two, myself. That's kind of hard to thank people. I would say thank you to the people of Fidelity Investments for my portfolio. Thank you to Charles Schwab for my portfolio. And if you get bored, go to bcsteele.com, which I have not updated in a long time. BC Steele underscore or BC underscore Steele on Instagram and TikTok. Just search BC Steele on Facebook. I'm on there. One SF podcast on Twitter. Not that I still have a podcast, but it's there. And yeah, you too, if you try hard enough, you will be offended by me eventually.
Well, with that being said, I want to thank you for taking your time to come on here. It's been a minute since you and I talked. Uh, Definitely always a pleasure to be able to, shoot the breeze with you.
Awesome.
Take care of yourself. Hopefully, this pandemic will be over and we'll be able to see you in a wrestling ring sooner than later.
Sounds good. I will be there.
All right, folks. This is the White Trash Hero. I'm going to sign off. Thank you, BC Steele, and peace.